Hi, my name is John. I'm a member of the Save Our Squirrels Berwick group. Our group was formed in 2006 and we work in a fairly large area of Berwickshire and North Northumberland. As such, we have both the Berwickshire Park in our area and also the Kylo Red Squirrel Reserve. Our greatest achievement to date is keeping a healthy population of red squirrels within our area.
Hi, I'm Sue and I'm a volunteer with the East Wigtonshire Red Squirrel Group, which was formed in 2019. The group covers a large area around Newton Stewart and the Mackers Peninsula in Dumfries and Galloway. Our aim is to promote and conserve the red squirrels of this area so they can thrive in their rightful home.
Hello, I'm Peter Garson. I'm chair of the Gatehouse Squirrel Group, and behind me you can see the beautiful Fleet Valley, all good for squirrels. Founded in 2015, we're still battling away here to keep our reds.
Hello everybody, my name's Peter Garson. I'm chair of the Gatehouse Squirrel Group, but I'm representing the Red Squirrel Forum for South Scotland today in what follows. A bit of history to start with. By 2017, South Scotland already had grey squirrels, and more importantly, they had brought in squirrel pox with them from both the north and the south. But there was already some activity courtesy of the previous SSRS project, the one before this one. There were numerous solo volunteers operating throughout the borders and Dumfries and Galloway with traps loaned from SSRS at this point. There are also 4 volunteer groups. Berwick was the first in the area to be founded in 2006, actually under an English project in Northumberland called Save Our Squirrels, but this group is unique in crossing the border and also covers a good portion of Berwickshire. A bit later on in 2014-15, Annandale, Glenkens and Gatehouse, all in Galloway, started groups with plenty of help from SSRS. And there are also landowners receiving SRDP funding for grey squirrel control through the government in areas called parks, which had actually been designated by SSRS as the most promising areas in which to control greys in an effort to save reds. Now we come to the present project, which is drawing to a close. The staff of that project in Dumfries and Galloway and the borders were essentially tasked with the rather difficult prospect of forming new groups and networks to cover their 10 parks, these priority areas. You can see them there on this map, going from Berwick in the east right down to near Stranraer in the east. They basically cover the main catchments in South Scotland. 3 years later, 14 new groups had been formed. This was an extraordinary success, entirely at the hands of the local SSRS staff in South Scotland. This is a very difficult thing to do, going in stone cold to an area, maybe giving a talk or having some other form of event, and persuading the people present or others that there's a need for a squirrel group and that some or all of those people present are the ones to lead it. This is a very hard thing to do, and I really do congratulate all the staff who've been involved in that effort, and to bring off this particular target of the SSRS project with such success deserves great congratulations from everybody involved. So what is the forum exactly? Well, it was founded in 2018 in the middle of this period that I've just been talking about, when new groups are being founded. The idea was to have a volunteer-led organisation that represented and supported all these new groups, and indeed the older ones. We kept it very simple on the advice of Northern Red Squirrels, which is the forum for Northumberland and Cumbria and other people we talk to. So we simply have a board which consists of volunteers representing all of the groups in the region. So that's 18 potential groups and 18 individuals on the board. There's no chair at present, so any offers are most welcome, and we would dearly like somebody to take up this post as soon as possible. Myself, as the founder, did a year. John Ray from Berwick did the second year, and we've been unable to persuade anybody else, either from within the groups or from outside, to take this up. And we would be glad to talk to anybody who might be interested. Not least because we think the coordination role that the forum presently has alongside SSRS is going to become more crucial as developing community action from SSRS comes to an end in March next year. Meanwhile, working alongside SSRS, what have we managed to do? One of the most crucial original thoughts about what the forum should do was that we should help each other. The groups should work to assist each other in bringing up the general standard of work and the amount of work that gets done. We have about 350 volunteers in our groups, and these people come from every possible walk of life and have a huge amount of experience and expertise to offer, if only we can harness it. One way in which we have tried to foster assistance between groups is through this offers and needs chart. Here we've got 19 activities and 18 groups charted. You don't have to read this, but we've got surveys, grey squirrel control, looking after data, public awareness, publicity, and things like fundraising and recruiting new members along the top. And we've got the 18 groups down the side, the Dumfries and Galloway ones and the Borders ones. The only thing you need to get out of this picture is the colours. The green cells represent groups offering their assistance to any other group in those particular activities. And the red cells are indications that particular groups would like to engage in an additional activity over and above what they're doing now, but need assistance in realizing that ambition. So obviously the object of the exercise is to match green with red. And we have made attempts to matchmake at particular events, both virtual and real. And we've also done a lot of publicity or persuasion over the internet to try to get groups to collaborate with each other. But actually the number of hot dates that have actually taken place is quite small, and we don't quite understand why this is the case, and I think it might be worth having a discussion about this to help us on our way. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but I think it's true to say that it's not realized its potential yet. Of course, the end of the SSRS project in March 2022 may well concentrate minds, and we may then start dating each other furiously. Let's see. What else have we done? Well, we won a £14,000 grant from the Red Squirrel Survival Trust in 2020. And that was specifically to provide items of equipment that at the time SSRS couldn't provide for budgetary reasons. Expensive things like thermal imagers that come in at about £1,000 or £1,500 a time, and trail cameras, which reasonable ones probably cost about £50. So we got plenty of both and gave them to the 15 groups in the network across the whole of the south of Scotland, most in need of them. Only 3 groups did not benefit from this because they already had at least that amount of equipment already. Some had none, and some had some. So it was divvied out accordingly. So thank you very much to the Red Squirrel Survival Trust. Now I'm going to move on to a sort of cook's tour of the region and its groups. Incidentally, groups are sometimes called networks, but I'm using group today just to simplify things. First, we'll go to Moffetton District. There you can see the big red arrow pointing to where it is. I realise that quite a lot of the people in the audience won't be fully familiar with the geography of South Scotland, so I'm going to repeatedly show this map and arrow the group I'm talking about. So there's Moffett, nice wee town, and some very nice woodlands around it, both deciduous, and in the distance you can see some conifer plantations, which are probably Forestry and Land Scotland Forestry Commission, as was managed. This is a story of Red Squirrel Recovery, and really rather a dramatic one, although still in its early stages. Volunteers in this group have been trapping in woodlands, in plantations, and even in gardens in and around Moffett through folk in those places, in those households, hosting traps and alerting the group to any captures. So it's involved volunteers, also involved input from SSRS staff. About 300 grey squirrels have been removed since 2019, when the group actually was founded and got started. And already we've got red squirrels reappearing in the middle of Moffett after very long absences in some cases. There's one instance of a householder finding a red squirrel in their garden recently after a gap of 11 years. So really quite a modest amount of grey squirrel control in a reasonably focused area has produced immediate results. This is just anecdote at the moment, but presumably in the years to come, if the effort is sustained, we'll get more evidence of this recovery. So well done, Moffett. If we go to Lower Nistdale, so this is the area around Dumfries, they started a little earlier in 2017. They have a trained team of 10 trappers, and they have 50 people or thereabouts loaning traps in their gardens and other property, who can call in the cavalry when required if they catch a grey squirrel. There's also an SSRS trapper on hand, and local estates are active, some of which have Forestry Grant Scheme support, which is this governmental funding for grey squirrel control. During 2020 and 2021, approximately 2,500 grey squirrels have been removed. This is bound to be protecting red squirrels over a much wider area than simply Lower Nistdale itself. In particular, Solway Forest immediately to its south, because the grey squirrels have been probably coming round the western side of Dumfries and then down into the forests on the Solway coast down there. And there has been a sort of avalanche of grey squirrels entering that area, but there would have been an even bigger tsunami if work by Lower Nistdale had not been taking place at this sort of scale. So this is a phenomenal effort, given they were only founded in 2017. So again, well done, Lower Nistdale. Kirkcudbright, a bit further along the coast from Solway Forests. These folk struck up a management agreement between Dumfries and Galloway Council, Forestry and Land Scotland, and the local charity in Kirkcudbright, which enabled them to take over the management of Bar Hill Wood, which is essentially the town wood. It's just above town. It's about 10 minutes walk from the centre of Kirkcudbright, up the hill to the south. They also got a grant from Galloway Glens Landscape Partnership, which is another Heritage Lottery Fund project operating in this area at the present time. And that funded the building of a forest classroom and a hide. So some really serious engagement and education infrastructure was the result of this effort. There's the classroom in the wood. This was the Bar Hill Festival, which took place recently as a sort of celebration of something like a conclusion to the COVID problem that we've all been having. At least people were out and about in the woods again. There are some kids at the hide, and there's a squirrel outside the hide, and as you can see, this hide is equipped with a reflective pool, which is every photographer's delight because they can get nice pictures of their favourite animal reflected in the water of that pool. So well done, Kirkcudbright, in a completely different area of activity. Tremendous success. Many people who are local in the audience will have probably been to that hide and seen the squirrels. Very easy to observe there. Esk Valley, we've gone right out to the far east of Dumfries and Galloway. These folk have developed a mobile app for recording grey squirrel control records in the field. And this automatically feeds into a spreadsheet which was developed by SSRS jointly with the forum for the batch upload of such data to the database via the SSRS hub, the interface that we all use for such things. This could also be used for surveys. So here's the front page of the app. Here's the form you have to fill in. Here's the list you can generate when you have a number of records. And there's a map of where those grey squirrel removals actually were achieved. This is in the area just south of Canonby, which is where the River Esk flows into the Solway. So that's just an example, but that's a really tremendous thing to have equipped us all with, and we're looking forward to sharing this. It's only recently been developed, but it will be very, very useful for any group that's doing a substantial amount of grey squirrel control, and it will greatly increase the likelihood of trapping records and indeed shooting records getting into the database, which of course is an important aspect of all of this work, because we don't know what's happening overall. We can make very little conclusions about how successful we're being at controlling greys and encouraging reds. Back to Solway Forests, where we discussed them earlier a little. These folk are the champs at outdoor activities and community fundraising. And they kindly provided me with some animated slides. So they ran a fun run for which you had to pay money to enter. Don't know what the dog subscription was, but took part. They've also done lots of shows and galas in their area. We've all done quite a bit of that, but I think they're pretty expert at that. They've also done an exercise which is a cross between orienteering and a quiz. So these squirrels hiding in the woods have answers to questions which are on this sheet, and kids have to go around, their parents having paid an entry fee, and they're all hoping for a good score when they get home. But another very imaginative idea from this group about how to get the community involved and how to raise money. And perhaps this is the most extreme example. Some poor person in the group has deigned to wear the Sandy the Squirrel suit, which I can tell you from personal experience is not pleasant. And it looks to me as though this poor lady is being strangled by Sandy, but presumably the object of the exercise again is to squeeze some money out of her, so I hope it was successful. This group also done a couple of photography competitions to provide pictures for their calendars in 2 different years. Beautiful calendars were produced, money was made, and in 2020, when things got a bit tough for photographers, because they couldn't go out, they got kids to enter a painting competition to fulfill the same need, and they produced a stunning calendar, in my opinion, the best of the 3 from those pictures. So there's some ideas about how to engage with your community and raise money, and they've been very successful in both of those aims. Now to Gatehouse. This is where I'm based. I suppose the most novel thing that we've done is that we've decided to run a monthly red squirrel garden count. And that's a red squirrel in my own garden. And this is what it looks like over a period of 5 years now. We've been running this since the beginning of 2017. I don't ask people for information on their red squirrels every day of the week, every day of the month. I just ask them for 2 numbers each month. The maximum number of red squirrels they saw at once in their property on any one occasion in the month, and the total number of individuals they think they could recognize during that month from differences in their appearance. Things like coat color and stumpy tails and scratches on their nose, etc. So that's the pattern for reds, and you can see it goes up and down a lot. I think this is more to do with changes in behavior and probably changes in food supply, both in people's gardens and outside the gardens, than it is about changes in numbers of squirrels. But it's presumably a combination of both. We've been monitoring grey squirrels since we started in 2015, and here we have the pattern. And you can see it's definitely on the rise to the right as we get up to the present day. So we've got the longest ever decline in red squirrels going on at the moment here. We've had declines before, but never for this long. This has gone on for about 10 months. And this is coming from 20 or 25 gardens, just to give you an idea of the scale of the operation. And at the same time, we've now got an increase in grey. So this is giving us cause for concern. Perplexingly, we have no evidence of major pox outbreaks. We've got a few individuals being picked up, either sick or dead from pox. But we've never had what would be regarded as an outbreak, where numerous red squirrels are being found sick or dead in people's gardens, or indeed anywhere else around Gatehouse. So we don't really know what's going on, but we are looking for help. And it seems to me that pine martins might provide some of that help. And the question is, can we encourage pine martins? We've already got them here, but maybe we need more. Fortunately, the cavalry have arrived in the shape of the Dumfries and Galloway Pine Martin group, which was recently formed. We're ahead of the game in the sense that in 2017, the Scottish Wildlife Trust decided to put up pine marten boxes for protection and for breeding, hopefully, in their Costrammon Wood Nature Reserve, just up the Fleet Valley from Gatehouse. As you can see, this is quite an elaborate business involving pulleys and hard hats, because these boxes are quite heavy. They're made of wood, but they're quite substantial, as you can see. There's the same box up, and it's been up for quite a while, maybe 6 months or a year, and you can see some little bits of stuff there. Those are pine marten scats. Pine martens often mark the top of the boxes with scats, as presumably a scent marking signal. Keep out, this is my box kind of stuff. And of course, if you're licensed and you go in May and open up the box, this is what you want to see, isn't it? 2 baby pine martens, one to the left of the left ear of the mum and one to the right of the right ear. This was not taken, this photograph was not taken in this box, unfortunately, but that's what we're trying to achieve. And there's good circumstantial evidence, at least, that if you put boxes up, you get more martens, regardless of the kind of woodland you are talking about. So more boxes are going to be put up by this group in pretty short order, because they've just received a grant from Galloway Glens Landscape Partnership to fund their first batch of boxes and get them up. And we have 3 or 4 landowners around Gatehouse, including Forestry and Land Scotland, who are prepared to host boxes. So things are looking up for martins probably in this area, and hopefully that will have the predictable effect on grey squirrels, which will help our reds. So now I'm going to hand you over to, first of all, East Wigtonshire, who have their own little show to bring on in a minute. And then after that, you'll hear from the Berwick group, our longest standing group, who've got a good story to tell. So thank you very much for listening. And I hope that was interesting and inspirational.
Hi, I'm Emma. And I'm Claire. And we're both volunteers with the East Wigtonshire Red Squirrel Group. One of our group's aims is to advance the education of the general public in the subject of red squirrel conservation. And towards that aim, we have been busy at events in our region raising awareness about red squirrels. Pre-pandemic, we have had a stand at the Wigton Agricultural Show, and more recently we have promoted our work at the Wigtownshire, a local event celebrating our community. During this year's famous Wigton Book Festival, we were jointly involved in 2 red squirrel walks with naturalist Polly Puller, who was promoting her book, A Scurry of Squirrels. The walks took place in a local woodland estate, where our grey squirrel controllers had been busy removing grey squirrels. And I'm happy to say on both walks red squirrels were sighted. 2 of our members have led successful online workshops about red squirrels with a group of young people with learning disabilities. Our biggest success this year has been to produce a calendar for 2022. Local photographers willingly provided beautiful photographs of our own native red squirrels. 12 businesses from the East Wigtonshire area each sponsored a month of the calendar. They were all delighted to be involved, showing how important red squirrels are to our whole community. In part thanks to sightings from members of the public, this year alone we have removed over 200 grey squirrels. We are now receiving almost twice as many red squirrel sightings as grey squirrel sightings. Overall, it's been a successful year in promoting red squirrel conservation in West Wigtonshire.
Hello, my name is John Ray and I'm a member of the Save Our Squirrels Berwick group. The forum felt that as part of this presentation, it would be of interest to have a case study of an existing red squirrel group. As the longest running group in South Scotland, we got the job. So here goes. The group was formed in 2006 after two founder members who were part of a local wildlife group took part in a project surveying squirrels in the Kyloe Woods for Newcastle University. This study was organised by Peter Lutz. From the outset, we believed only a landscape-wide effort would protect red squirrels in our area. Our group work in both South Berwickshire and North Northumberland, so we are the only volunteer group conserving reds in both Scotland and England. From the start, we've always worked closely with both the precursors of and the current Saving Scotland's Red Squirrels and Red Squirrels Northern England. This map broadly shows the group's working area. In the group's working area in Scotland, we have the designated Berwickshire Priority Area for Red Squirrel Conservation. This park was established to protect the residual population of reds and to cover the main incursion routes, which are along the River Tweed and also the Whitadder corridors. Saving Scotland's Red Squirrels have worked to get all the major estates bordering the River Tweed on the Scottish side onto the Forestry Grant Scheme, which is a tremendous effort and a big help to us. Within the north of England, there are 16 dedicated red squirrel reserves. And within our area, the Kyloe, Detchant and Shiloh Woods together form one of these reserves. On the map, the area outlined in blue is the Berwickshire Park, and the area in red is the Kyloe Red Squirrel Reserve, with the red line around it being a 5-kilometre grey exclusion zone. Our main aims, the group's main aims, are to safeguard, maintain and expand the current red squirrel population, to control the spread and numbers of grey squirrels and eradicate grey squirrels where feasible, to raise awareness of the plight of red squirrels through community events and education activities, and to work closely with Saving Scotland's Red Squirrels and Red Squirrels Northern England project. We undertake in-house training of volunteers in the principles and practice of squirrel surveying, monitoring, recording and grey control. And we gather data on squirrels throughout southern Scotland and North Northumberland. We therefore arrange events and take the following actions. We undertake surveys in the woods throughout the group's area so that people can learn the process of wildlife recording and at the same time add to the database of local information. Everyone enjoys going for a walk in the woods and checking feeder boxes, and many then go on to undertake grey control. We control grey squirrels wherever we find them, and we supply all of the data that we gather to Saving Scotland's Red Squirrels and Red Squirrels in Northern England and to go into the national databases. And finally, we work closely with local people and landowners in an attempt to raise red squirrel awareness. We have a display that we take to various events and locations in our area. Our aim is to raise awareness of the plight of red squirrels rather than fundraising. However, Nick, one of the group's members, is a keen wildlife photographer who produces pictures and cards for sale at the events. We also give talks when we're asked to. So how does the group deliver practical red squirrel conservation? By monitoring the red population and controlling grey squirrels along the main incursion routes and surrounding woodlands. As I've said before, the main incursion routes are really along the River Tweed, the River Whitadder and the River Twill. From its inception, we realised that just conserving an island of reds would fail due to being overwhelmed by incoming greys from the surrounding areas. Only landscape-wide conservation would work. Our current working area is approximately 650 square kilometres. Of course, all that means is that you're just trying to protect a much larger island. We've always worked on both sides of the Scottish-English border. The squirrels don't recognise this border, so why should we? Currently, there's no red conservation work being undertaken adjacent to our area, either in Berwickshire or to the south of our group in Northumberland. We work closely with the Wooler Group, who are working to our southwest. We also work very closely with local landowners. We had an event to engage landowners and gatekeepers, and we had a raising awareness days for both of them, with talks, discussions, and practical sessions. This proved to be very successful. All of our work is carried out by volunteers. We have approximately 19 regular volunteers involved in grey squirrel control and 33 volunteers undertaking monitoring, with some volunteers doing both activities. North Northumberland and Berwickshire are very sparsely populated areas, so the group will never attract large numbers of volunteers. The working methodology that we've evolved is to make maximum use of volunteers' valuable time. One of the most valuable things a volunteer brings is their time. We always try and arrange for volunteers to work in their local woods to minimise travelling. Along the main incursion routes in the river valleys, we live trap and shoot grey squirrels that currently threaten our existing red population. Away from these incursion routes, where there are smaller numbers of greys, and especially where we have populations of red squirrels, we undertake regular monitoring using feeders and hair tubes and collecting hair samples and using trail cameras. Obviously, all this monitoring equipment is disinfected regularly to minimise transmission of the pox. Doing this monitoring allows us to check on the red numbers, but also gives us early evidence of grey incursions and has the effect of pre-baiting to hold them in the area whilst we can trap to remove them. As you all know, once you start trapping, it's a very time-intensive occupation, checking traps twice daily. There are never enough controllers, and this targeted trapping makes best use of our volunteer controllers' time. During 2020, our grey squirrel controllers have successfully removed 938 grey squirrels working in 123 separate woodlands. Red squirrels have returned to many areas following grey squirrel control, but you must always be aware that grey squirrels can reappear at any time and be prepared to find them and remove them. Since 2012, our group has standardised recording of the work. This allows us to compare different months, different areas, map out the information that we've got, and aids in organising future control and future monitoring. Since 2012, 6,031 greys have been removed from our working area. From the group's early days, we've always worked closely with the various versions of Saving Scotland's Red Squirrels and Red Squirrels Northern England. Both very different organisations bringing their own strengths and weaknesses and different approaches to volunteer groups. The Save Our Squirrels Berwick Group's work is ongoing and will continue to facilitate grey squirrel removal throughout this area to conserve, safeguard, maintain and expand the current red squirrel population. Now, I'd like to show you a few of our local red squirrels. All of the photos were taken by Nick Box, who's a member of our group. Finally, I'd like to say that without the work of the Berwick Red Squirrel Group, I believe that we would have lost all of the red squirrels in our area. The group's members are all volunteers who believe passionately about conserving red squirrels in our area and give their valuable time and bring a variety of skills to achieve this. This work could not have been undertaken without the support of landowners, local people, and national organisations, especially Saving Scotland's Red Squirrels and Red Squirrels Northern England. Thank you all for joining us for our presentation on the Red Squirrel volunteer groups in South Scotland. This concludes our presentation, and we hope that you found it informative and enjoyable. Thank you.